The air in Seattle was crisp that October morning, the kind of chill that sharpened your senses and made every step feel purposeful. I stood outside the glass tower of Cascade Insights, my breath fogging in the dawn light, my laptop bag heavy on my shoulder. Inside that bag was something I'd poured 3 years of my life into, a predictive analytics system that could forecast market trends across 12 industries in under 8 seconds. It wasn't just code. I felt the weight of their expectations, but I wasn't nervous. I was ready. "Good morning," I began, my voice clear and steady. "Today, you're going to see why the Horizon Engine doesn't just analyze data. It predicts the future with unmatched precision." I clicked to the first slide, a virtual reality visualization I designed to make the data come alive. The screen bloomed with a 3D map of global markets, lines of light tracing consumer trends, supply chains, and economic shifts. The room leaned forward. I walked them through the system's core, its ability to process 12 industries simultaneously, its 98% accuracy rate, its speed that left competitors in the dust. I ran a live demo, feeding the system last quarter's data. In 8 seconds, it spat out predictions that matched real-world outcomes with chilling accuracy. When I finished, the room was silent. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that hums with awe. Claire Dawson leaned forward, her hands clasped. "That," she said, her voice measured, "is the most compelling demo we've seen this year." Behind me, Nathan chuckled, his voice breaking the spell. "We aim to impress." Claire didn't look at him. She looked at me. "Who designed the core architecture?" she asked. I met her gaze. "I did." She nodded, a small gesture that felt like a spotlight. "Impressive. We'll want to discuss this further." I walked out of that boardroom with my head high, the weight of my laptop bag lighter than ever. For the first time in years, I felt seen not as a cog in Cascade's machine, but as the architect of something extraordinary. The Horizon Engine wasn't just a tool. It was proof that I could change the game. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, who taught me to own my brilliance. In her Stanford office, surrounded by books and dreams, she'd said, "Emma, your work will outlast the noise. Make it undeniable." Today, I had. But as I rode the elevator down, a quiet unease settled in my chest. Nathan's chuckle, the way his executives had stayed silent, the subtle shift in Claire's tone when she focused on Maytal lingered. I'd landed the pitch of a lifetime, but something told me the real test was coming. I stepped into the Seattle drizzle, the city's gray skyline blurring before me. The Horizon Engine was my creation. But would Cascade let me keep it? Or would they try to claim it as their own? That night, in my apartment, I sat by the window, watching ferries glide across Puget Sound. My cat, Luna, curled up beside me, her purring a soft anchor. I opened my journal, a habit I'd started after Elena's passing. I wrote about the pitch, the silence, Claire's nod. I wrote about the kids at the STEM program, how their questions reminded me why I'd started this. They didn't care about titles or politics. They cared about ideas. I wanted to build a world where their dreams could thrive, where systems like mine could empower, not exploit. It was a vision, a map to the future, a promise that the world could move smarter, faster, better. My name is Emma Harper. And today, I was about to show that vision to Apex Ventures, the most formidable venture capital firm in New York City. This wasn't just a pitch. It was the moment I'd been building towards since I first typed a line of code in my cramped Capitol Hill apartment. I closed the journal, my heart full but heavy. The $900 million deal was within reach, and Apex Ventures saw what I could do. But Cascade Insights was a machine, and I was just one part of it. I didn't know it yet, but the celebration that followed would reveal how little they valued me. The breakthrough was mine, but the battle to keep it was just beginning. I looked out at Seattle's lights, a city of dreamers and builders. Whatever came next, I'd face it with the same fire that built the Horizon Engine. Because this wasn't just about a system. It was about proving that my voice, my work, my name mattered. I pushed through the revolving doors, the hum of the office greeting me like an old friend. Cascade Insights was a tech darling, a Seattle startup with big dreams and bigger egos. I joined them fresh from grad school, a data scientist with a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos. For 3 years, I'd worked late nights, fueled by coffee and ambition, crafting a system that didn't just react to markets, it anticipated them. It used artificial intelligence to predict consumer behavior, supply chain shifts, even geopolitical ripples, with a precision that made my colleagues' jaws drop. I called it the Horizon Engine. It was my creation, my legacy, and today, it was about to meet the world. The boardroom was on the 23rd floor, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows framing Puget Sound. The view was breathtaking, but I barely noticed. My focus was on the long mahogany table, the projector humming softly, and the empty chairs waiting for Apex Ventures. I set up my laptop, hands steady despite the pulse of adrenaline. I'd rehearsed this pitch 100 times, in front of mirrors, to my cat, even to the kids at the local high school STEM program I mentored. Those teenagers, with their wide eyes and fearless questions, had taught me how to explain complex ideas simply. Today, I'd need every ounce of that clarity. Nathan Pierce, our CEO, swept into the room, his tailored suit and easy grin commanding attention. He was the kind of leader who could sell ice in a blizzard, but his technical knowledge stopped at buzzwords. Behind him trailed a trio of executives, all men, all nodding at Nathan's every word. They took their seats behind me, a silent backdrop to my presentation. Nathan clapped a hand on my shoulder, his voice loud enough for the room. "Emma, you ready to make us look good?" I smiled tightly. This wasn't about making us look good. It was about showing what I'd built. The Apex Ventures team arrived at precisely 9 a.m., their presence shifting the air. Claire Dawson, their managing partner, led the group. She was a legend in venture capital, known for spotting game changers before anyone else. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, lingering on me for a moment longer than the others. Her colleagues, 2 men in crisp suits, carried tablets and an air of quiet scrutiny. They settled across the table, arms folded, waiting. The boardroom smelled faintly of polished wood and ambition, its glass walls catching the morning light over Seattle's skyline. I stood at the front, my laptop humming softly, the Horizon Engine's interface glowing on the screen behind me. 3 years of late nights, of code that felt like poetry, of dreams stitched into algorithms, it all came down to this moment. "Who led the technical design?" she asked, her tone deliberate. I straightened, meeting her gaze. I did. From concept to execution. She nodded, a small, deliberate motion. "Keep her on the project. We'll want to move forward." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Not, "We'll invest in Cascade." Not, "We'll back Nathan's vision." "Keep her on the project, asterisk." It was subtle, but I caught it. Apex wasn't just buying a system, they were buying me. I felt a surge of pride, not just for the Horizon Engine, but for myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't just a name on a payroll. I was the architect of something that could change the world. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, her voice echoing from our days at Stanford. "Own your brilliance, Emma," she'd said, her office cluttered with books and hope. "Make them see you." Today, they had. But as I packed up my laptop, a shadow crept into my triumph. Nathan's chuckle, the way his executives had stayed silent, the flicker of discomfort in their eyes when Claire focused on mate, all lingered. I glanced at him as we left the boardroom, his grin still plastered on, but his jaw tight. He clapped my shoulder again, too hard, his voice loud. "Great job, Emma. You made us proud." The words were warm, but his eyes were cold, calculating. I smiled back, polite, professional, but my stomach twisted. I'd stunned the room, but I'd also shifted the spotlight, and Nathan Pierce didn't share stages. As I rode the elevator down, the Seattle skyline unfolding beyond the glass, I replayed Claire's words. "Keep her on the project." Asterisk. They were a lifeline, a validation, but also a warning. I'd built something undeniable, but Cascade Insights was a machine, and I was just one gear. I thought of the kids I mentored at the local STEM program, their fearless questions, their dreams of building things that mattered. I'd told them to be bold, to claim their space. Now, I had to live that advice. I stepped into the lobby, the drizzle outside softening the city's edges. My journal waited at home, a place to process this moment, to capture the fire in my chest. I wrote that night, Luna purring beside me, about the pitch, the silence, the nod from Claire. I wrote about Elena, about the kids, about the weight of being seen, but I also wrote about the unease. Nathan's chuckle, the executive's silence, the way Claire's focus had felt like a line drawn in the sand. The Horizon engine was mine, but would Cascade let it stay that way? I closed my journal, my heart racing. The $900 million deal was closer than ever, and Apex Ventures saw my worth. But something told me the real battle was coming not for the deal, but for my place in it. I looked out at Puget Sound, its waters dark and restless. I'd stunned the room today, but tomorrow I'd need more than code to hold my ground. This wasn't just about a pitch. It was about proving I belonged, not just in the room, but at the center of it. Today, I, Emma Harper, was pitching my predictive analytics system to Apex Ventures, the New York City giants who could turn Cascade Insights into a household name. The stakes were astronomical, but as I adjusted the projector, my hands didn't shake. I wasn't just ready, I was alive. The Apex team filed in at 9 a.m. sharp, their presence like a shift in gravity. Claire Dawson, their managing partner, led the way, her tailored blazer and piercing gaze commanding respect. She was a titan in venture capital, known for backing visionaries who redefined industries. Her colleagues, two men with tablets and skeptical frowns, flanked her as they took their seats across the long mahogany table. Behind me, Nathan Pierce, our CEO, lounged with his usual charisma, his grin a little too wide. His executives, a trio of silent suits, sat like statues, their eyes on Nathan, not me. I felt their weight, their expectation, but I didn't falter. This wasn't their stage. It was mine. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady, cutting through the room's quiet hum. "Today, you'll see why the Horizon engine doesn't just predict markets, it shapes them." I clicked to my first slide, and the screen burst into a virtual reality visualization I'd spent weeks perfecting. A 3D globe spun, its surface alive with glowing threads, consumer trends, supply chains, economic pulse woven into a dance of data. The room leaned forward, even Nathan's grin faltering for a moment. I walked them through the system's heart, its AI core, trained to forecast 12 industries in 8 seconds, its 98% accuracy, its ability to anticipate shifts before they happened. I spoke of its potential, not just for profit, but for stability, for making markets serve people, not chaos. Then came the demo. I'd chosen a bold move, feeding the Horizon engine live data from the past quarter's global markets. My fingers danced across the keyboard, the screen updating in real time. 8 seconds later, it delivered predictions that matched real-world outcomes to the decimal. The room was silent, the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. I turned to face Apex, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "This is what sets us apart. The Horizon engine doesn't follow trends. It creates certainty." I paused, letting the words land. Claire Dawson's eyes locked on mine, sharp and unreadable. Her colleague scribbled furiously on his tablet. The third, a man with silver hair, simply nodded, once, but it felt like a thunderclap. When I finished, 15 minutes on the dot, the silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then Claire leaned forward, her hands clasped, her voice low but clear. "That, Miss Harper, is the first pitch today that didn't waste our time." The words hit me like sunlight, warm and undeniable. Behind me, Nathan chuckled, his voice breaking the spell. "We aimed to impress, Claire." He leaned back, arms crossed, as if he'd written the code himself. Claire didn't glance at him. She kept her eyes on me. The morning after my pitch, the air in Cascade Insight's Seattle office buzzed with a joy that felt foreign to me. I stepped off the elevator onto the 23rd floor, expecting the usual hum of keyboards and coffee-fueled chatter. Instead, I was met with laughter, clinking glasses, and the pop of champagne corks. The open-plan office was transformed, draped in banners that shimmered with gold lettering. $900 million secured, the future is ours. I was reviewing the project docs this morning, and your name's not in the architecture file. It just says, System, finalized by executive leadership. I thought it was a mistake. His words hit like a punch. I forced a smile, my chest tight. It's not a mistake, Lucas. It's just how things work here. He hesitated, his enthusiasm dimming. You should be up there, he said, nodding toward Nathan, who was now posing for photos. They're acting like it's all him. I shrugged, but inside, something cracked. This wasn't oversight. It was deliberate. My work, my late nights, my breakthroughs, they were being erased, polished into a story Nathan could wear like a crown. I thought of the hackathon I'd organized last year, a marathon of ideas that shaped the Horizon engine's final design. My team had stayed up until dawn, fueled by pizza and passion, building something extraordinary. Now, that moment was gone, swallowed by Nathan's narrative. I walked back to my desk, the celebration roaring behind me. In my drawer, tucked beneath a stack of papers, I found a handwritten note from my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz. I'd kept it since my Stanford days, a scrap of wisdom from a woman who'd seen me at my rawest. Your work is your voice, she'd written. Don't let anyone silence it. I traced the ink, my throat tightening. Elena had believed in me when I doubted myself, had pushed me to own my brilliance. Yesterday, I'd felt that brilliance shine. Today, it was being buried, and I didn't know how to fight back. I opened my journal, a habit I'd leaned into since Elena's passing. I wrote about the banners, the cake, Nathan's speech. I wrote about Lucas's question, how it had sparked both pain and resolve. I wrote about the STEM kids I mentored at the local high school, their fearless dreams reminding me why I'd built the Horizon engine. They didn't care about plaques or titles. They cared about impact. I wanted to be the person they looked up to, someone who stood tall, not someone erased by a company's greed. But as I closed the journal, the weight of exclusion settled deeper. Nathan's speech, the plaque, the missing name in the doxet, wasn't just about credit. It was about power. Cascade Insights was rewriting my story, and I was letting it happen. I looked out the window, Puget Sound shimmering under a gray Seattle sky. The $900 million deal was real, but so was the betrayal. I thought of Claire Dawson's nod, her insistence that I stay on the project. Apex Ventures had seen me, but Cascade hadn't, and that gap, that disconnect, was a warning I couldn't ignore. I stood, my hands steady despite the ache in my chest. The celebration continued, oblivious to my presence. But Lucas's words echoed, a small spark in the dark. You should be up there. Maybe he was right. Maybe this wasn't the end, but the beginning of a fight I hadn't yet chosen. I slipped Elena's note into my pocket, its weight grounding me. The Horizon engine was mine, and so was my voice. I didn't know how, but I'd make them hear it again. Because this wasn't just about a deal. Balloons floated above cubicles, and a massive cake sat on a central table, its icing spelling out Cascade's triumph. The Horizon engine, my creation, had landed the biggest deal in the company's history, and the celebration was in full swing. But as I stood there, my laptop bag heavy on my shoulder, I realized something chilling. This party wasn't for me. It was about proving I was more than a name they could erase. I'm Emma Harper, the data scientist who'd spent 3 years building the Horizon engine, a predictive analytics system that had stunned Apex Ventures just yesterday. My pitch, my code, my vision had secured a $900 million investment from New York City's most powerful venture firm. Claire Dawson, Apex's managing partner, had looked me in the eye and said, "Keep her on the project." I'd walked out of that boardroom feeling seen, my heart full of pride for what I'd built. But now, as I scanned the festive office, that pride curdled into something else. My name wasn't on the banners. No one met my eyes. The victory I'd fought for was being claimed by others, and I was an afterthought in my own story. I moved through the crowd, invisible amidst the cheers. Colleagues I'd mentored, developers I'd debugged code with at midnight, all raised glasses to Nathan Pierce, our CEO, who stood at the center of it all. Nathan, with his tailored suit and easy grin, held court like a king. He raised a flute of champagne, his voice booming over the chatter. "This is what leadership looks like," he said, pausing for applause. "Vision, grit, and a commitment to excellence from the top down." The room erupted, hands clapping, voices cheering. Someone handed him a plaque, its surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I stood near the kitchenette, my back against the wall, watching the scene unfold. Not one person looked my way. I checked my phone, hoping for a meeting invite, a debrief, anything to pull me into the fold. My calendar was empty. No strategy sessions, no follow-ups, just a blank day stretching before me. Yesterday, I'd stood before Apex Ventures, running live demos that outperformed industry benchmarks by 35%. Today, I was a ghost. I slipped into my cubicle, the noise of the celebration muffled but relentless. On my desk was a branded notebook and pen, Cascade's logo etched in silver. A generic gift, no card, no note. It wasn't gratitude. It was a reminder that I was expendable. That's when Lucas approached, his steps hesitant, his eyes darting around the room. He was an intern, fresh from the University of Washington, with a coder's curiosity and none of the office politics that seasoned the rest of us. He clutched a tablet, his voice low. "Emma, this might sound weird, but aren't you the one who built the Horizon engine?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. He frowned, glancing at his tablet. The night was quiet in my Capitol Hill apartment. The kind of quiet that amplifies every small sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant churn of a ferry crossing Puget Sound, the soft thud of my cat Luna's paws on the hardwood floor. I was half asleep, my phone glowing on the nightstand, when a soft chime pulled me awake. The clock read 2:47 a.m. A new email, its subject line stark, compensation adjustment effective immediately. An hour later, Nathan Pierce passed by, his stride deliberate, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second. He paused, his smile sharp, like a blade polished for show. "Got your email?" he asked, his voice smooth, smug. I stared at him, my jaw tight. "No explanation, Nathan? Just a number?" His smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed. He leaned in, his voice low, just for me. "You should have seen this coming, Emma. You got too prominent, too comfortable. Stay in your lane." He straightened, adjusting his cufflinks, and walked away, leaving his words to fester. I didn't respond, but something inside me snapped, not loud, not brittle, but deep, like a fault line shifting under pressure. I opened my journal again, my pen digging into the page. I wrote about Nathan's words, about the email, about the desk in the corner. I wrote about Elena, who'd taught me at Stanford to guard my brilliance. "Your work is your legacy," she'd said, her voice steady in my memory. I wrote about the STEM kids I mentored, their fearless questions, their belief that hard work could change the world. They were why I'd built the Horizon engine, not for Nathan, not for Cascade, but for a future where ideas mattered more than egos. But now, that future felt stolen, and I was letting it slip through my fingers. Then I found it, tucked in my bag, a USB drive from the hackathon. I'd saved a backup of the engine's original code, before Cascade's developers had altered it to scrub my contributions. I plugged it in, my heart racing. The files were there, untouched, my initials stamped in the metadata. They'd changed the production code, hidden my work, but they couldn't erase this. It was proof, a lifeline, a spark. I closed my laptop, my resolve hardening. Nathan thought he could bury me, but he'd miscalculated. I wasn't just a coder. I was the architect. That night, in my apartment, I sat by the window. Puget Sound, a dark mirror below. Luna curled beside me, her warmth grounding me. I opened my journal, but instead of writing, I read. Pages of late-night thoughts, of triumphs and doubts, of Elena's advice and the STEM kids' dreams. I read about the pitch, Claire's nod, Lucas's question. And then I wrote one more line. This isn't the end. It's the moment I fight back. Asterisk. The pay cut had broken the silence, not my spirit. Nathan thought he'd won, but he didn't know what I held in my hands, not just code, but a truth he couldn't erase. I looked out at Seattle's lights, the city alive with dreamers and builders. The Horizon engine was mine, and so was my voice. I didn't know how I'd reclaim it, but I knew I would. Because this wasn't just about a salary. It was about proving I was more than a number they could cut. I opened it, expecting some routine HR memo, maybe a budget update. Instead, a single paragraph stared back, cold and clinical. like a blade slipped under the cover of darkness. Due to strategic realignment of departmental resources, it read, "Your base salary will be adjusted by 40%. This change reflects evolving organizational priorities and takes effect this pay cycle." No signature, no context, just a generic HR email address and a corporate disclaimer. I sat up, the words searing into my mind. 40%. They were gutting nearly half my pay, days after I'd secured a $900 million deal for Cascade Insights. I'm Emma Harper, the data scientist who built the Horizon Engine, a predictive analytics system that had stunned Apex Ventures, New York City's top venture firm. My pitch, my code, had landed the biggest investment in the company's history. I'd stood in a Seattle boardroom, showing the world what my system could do, earning a nod from Claire Dawson herself. But yesterday's celebration had erased my name absent from banners, my contributions buried under Nathan Pierce's smug speech. And now this, a pay cut, delivered in the dead of night, as if they hoped I'd miss it until it was too late to fight. I reread the email, each word a deeper cut. No meeting, no warning, just a calculated move to diminish me. I closed my phone, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with a fury I hadn't known I could feel. Morning came too soon, the Seattle sky gray and heavy. I walked into Cascade Insights, my badge clutched tightly, only to find it no longer worked on the engineering floor. The security guard, a kind man who'd always waved me through, looked apologetic. "They changed the access last night," he muttered, calling an escort. Lucas, the young intern, appeared, his face pale, his tablet clutched like a shield. "I think they moved your desk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, as we walked past the festive remnants of yesterday's party-deflated balloons, crumbs of cake. He was right. My new workstation was a folding table shoved into a corner near the emergency exit, next to a flickering fluorescent light. No window, no monitors, just a squeaky chair and a power strip. My heart sank, not at the space, but at what it meant. They weren't just cutting my pay. They were erasing my place. I logged into my laptop, only to be greeted by a wall of "access denied" messages. The drive folders I'd built, the simulation environment I'd coded from scratch, the Horizon Engine itself all locked. I tried again, my fingers shaking. Restricted. I was still employed, still under contract, but they'd stripped away everything that made my role real. I sat there staring at the screen, the office chatter a distant hum. The team I'd mentored, the late nights I'd spent fixing bugs, the hackathon I'd led to shape the engine's curate was all gone, locked behind a digital wall. I opened my journal, a lifeline since my mentor Elena Ruiz's passing, and wrote one sentence. "They think they can silence me, but they don't know what I'm made of." Asterisk. The rain fell softly on Seattle that evening, a gentle patter against my Capitol Hill apartment's window, as if the city itself were whispering secrets. I sat on my couch, Luna curled beside me, her warmth a quiet anchor in the storm raging inside. My journal lay open, pages filled with the wounds of the past week. The celebration that erased me, the 40% pay cut, delivered at 2:47 a.m. Nathan Pierce's smug command, to stay in my lane. Apex, the firm that had nodded at my pitch, wasn't tied to Nathan's ego. They saw the engine's heart my heart. I didn't reply. Not yet. But her email was a lifeline, a sign that the world beyond Cascade was watching. Then came Lucas, the intern who dared to question my erasure. He texted me that afternoon, his message cryptic. "Check your inbox. Don't tell anyone." Asterisk. I opened my email, and there it was, a PDF attachment, no subject line. A leaked memo, stamped, confidential, outlining Cascade's Q3 restructure. My eyes scanned the org chart, red and green boxes marking roles. At the bottom, a handwritten note in Nathan's scrawl. Eliminate EH role entirely. Absorb into ops. No attribution. Asterisk. My breath stopped. This wasn't just a pay cut or a demoted desk. It was a plan to erase me completely. To make it so I'd never existed in the Horizon Engine's story. I saved the file, my hands steady, my fury cold and focused. I opened my journal, the pages a map of my fight. I wrote about the agreement, Claire's email, Lucas's memo. I wrote about the STEM kids I mentored, their dreams of building something real. I wrote about my mother, who'd taught me as a child in our Tacoma backyard to guard my spark, to never let anyone dim it. "You're a fire, Emma," she'd said, her hands cupping my face. "Burn bright." I'd forgotten that fire, let Cascade's betrayal smother it. But now, with the agreement in my safe, Claire's words on my screen, Lucas's courage in my inbox, I felt it flicker again. Not a blaze, not yet, but a steady ember, ready to ignite. I stood, crossing to my window, Puget Sound, shimmering under a clearing sky. The USB drive from the hackathon, the one with my original code, sat on my desk, its files untouched by Cascade's alterations. It was more than code. It was proof, my initials in the metadata, my vision in every line. I thought of the meetup, the women who'd shared their scars and strengths. I thought of Elena, her Stanford office filled with books and belief. I thought of Claire, her nod in the boardroom, her email tonight. They all saw me, even when Cascade didn't. And now, I saw myself. The truth was in my hands, not just the agreement, not just the code, but the certainty that I was more than their dismissal. Nathan thought he'd won, thought his memo, his locks, his 40% cut could silence me. He was wrong. I closed my journal, my resolve like steel. The Horizon engine was mine, and so was my story. I didn't know the next step. Not exactly. But I knew it started with this. I wasn't disappearing. I was rising. I looked out at Seattle's lights, the city a canvas of dreamers. This wasn't just about a system. It was about proving my fire could burn brighter than their shadows. Cascade Insights had stripped me of my role, my access, my dignity, all while basking in the $900 million deal my Horizon engine had secured. But tonight, something shifted. I wasn't just Emma Harper, the data scientist they'd tried to bury. I was the architect of truth, and I held it in my hands. It started with a memory, a flicker from 3 years ago when I'd first joined Cascade. I'd been cautious then, a young coder with a system too powerful to give away blindly. I'd worked with a lawyer to draft a licensing agreement, a safeguard in case the company failed or turned against me. I hadn't thought of it in years, buried in a fireproof safe under my bed, but Nathan's words, the locked drives, the corner desk, they woke something in me. I knelt on the hardwood floor, the safe's lock clicking open with a satisfying thud. Inside, among old passports and family photos, was a manila envelope, its edges yellowed but intact. My handwriting stared back, Horizon engine, licensing agreement, pre-employment. My heart raced as I pulled it out, the paper heavy with possibility. I sat at my kitchen table, the reins rhythm steady, and read. Clause 7.2.1. In the event of unethical treatment, role reassignment contrary to agreed duties, or failure to acknowledge intellectual contribution, Cascade Insights forfeits all rights to the Horizon engine and its derivatives. Asterisk. I read it again, my breath catching. I'd built the engine independently, refined it in my apartment before ever joining Cascade. They had permission to use it, not own it. And now, with their pay cut, their erasure, their locks on my work, they'd violated every condition that clause protected. I leaned back, a slow smile breaking through the ache. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd handed me the key to take it all back. The next morning, I walked to a Women in Tech meetup in a Pioneer Square co-working space, needing perspective, needing voices that understood. The room buzzed with coders, designers, founders, women who'd fought their own battles in Seattle's tech scene. Over coffee, I listened to their stories. Stolen credit, sidelined promotions, quiet betrayals. One woman, a startup CEO, leaned across the table, her eyes fierce. "They'll try to erase you," she said, "but you don't need their permission to shine." Her words echoed my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, who told me at Stanford, "Guard your spark, Emma. It's yours alone." I left the meetup lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because I wasn't alone. I had a truth, a clause, a spark hand. I wasn't letting it go. Back home, my phone pinged with an email, not from Cascade's sterile HR system, but from my personal inbox. The sender, Claire Dawson, Apex Ventures managing partner. The subject: a question. My pulse quickened as I opened it. Emma, she wrote, hypothetically, if the Horizon engine were to operate independently, outside Cascade's infrastructure, would it maintain full capacity? Curious. I stared at the words, my mind racing. Claire wasn't asking about Cascade. She was asking about me. The Seattle dawn broke with a clarity that felt like a promise. The sky over Puget Sound streaked with pink and gold. I sat in my Capitol Hill apartment, a mug of coffee warming my hands, my old laptop humming on the kitchen table. It was the one I'd used before Cascade Insights, untouched by their network, a relic of the days when the Horizon engine was just a dream in my mind. Now, it was my weapon. Her words echoed the Women in Tech meetup I'd attended, where coders and founders had urged me to shine. I left the meeting with a contract and a fire in my chest. Cascade thought they dimmed my light, but I was burning brighter than ever. Claire Dawson's email lingered in my mind, her question about the engine's independence, a beacon. I drafted a reply, careful but clear. The Horizon engine is fully functional outside Cascade's infrastructure, with enhanced capabilities. I'd be happy to discuss further. I didn't send it, not yet. I wanted my actions to speak first. Lucas's leaked memo, Nathan's scrawl to eliminate role entirely, sat on my desk, a reminder of their betrayal. But it was also proof, a weapon I'd wield when the time was right. I opened my journal, my sanctuary since Elena's passing, and wrote about the day the notice, the LLC, the beta test. I wrote about my mother, who'd taught me in our Tacoma backyard to guard my spark. "You're a fire, Emma," she'd said. That fire was alive now, steady, controlled, ready to reshape the game. I stood in my new office that night, the city lights glinting through the window. The Horizon engine's new code ran on my laptop, its predictions sharper, its scope broader. I thought of the STEM kids, their fearless questions, their belief in a better future. I thought of Elena, her Stanford office a haven of wisdom. I thought of Claire, her nod in the boardroom, her email a quiet signal. They all saw me, and now, I saw myself not as a victim, but as a force. Nathan thought his pay cut, his memo, his locks could erase me. He didn't know I'd been preparing for this moment long before he did. I closed my laptop, the silence in the office profound. The termination notice was delivered. Harper Analytics was born. The engine was rising. I'd made my move, not with fanfare, but with precision, like a chess player seeing 10 steps ahead. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning. I looked out at Seattle, its skyline a canvas of dreamers and builders. The Horizon engine was mine, and so was my future. This wasn't just about code. It was about proving that truth, when held firmly, could shake even the mightiest empires. I'm Emma Harper, the data scientist who'd built a system that landed a $900 million deal, only to be erased by a company that thought it could bury me. The 40% pay cut, the corner desk. Nathan Pierce's smug dismissal they'd tried to silence me. But last night, I'd found the truth. A licensing agreement, a leaked memo, a spark. Today, I wasn't fighting back with noise. I was making a move so quiet, so precise, it would shake their game to its core. The licensing agreement sat beside my laptop, its words a lifeline. Clause 7.2.1 gave me the power to revoke Cascade's rights to the Horizon engine, my creation, if they treated me unethically or reassigned my role. They'd done both, and more. I opened a blank document and began drafting a termination notice. My fingers steady, my resolve like iron. Effective immediately, I wrote, Cascade Insights forfeits all rights to the Horizon engine due to violations of Clause 7.2. 1. Including unethical treatment and deliberate erasure of intellectual contribution. Each word was a brick in a wall I was building, not to hide behind, but to stand upon. By 9 a.m., the notice was notarized at a small office near Pike Place Market, the notary's stamp a quiet thunder. By noon, a courier had delivered it to Cascade's legal team, the envelope sealed with a weight they couldn't yet fathom. I didn't stop there. I opened my laptop and pulled up the USB drive from the hackathon, the one with my original code, untouched by Cascade's alterations. The files glowed on the screen, my initials in the metadata, like a signature on a masterpiece. I began rebuilding the Horizon engine, Not the watered-down version Cascade used, but a new one faster, smarter, mine. I worked through the afternoon, the rain returning to patter against my window, each line of code a reclamation of what they'd tried to steal. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, her voice clear in my Stanford memories. "Your work is your voice, Emma," she'd said. "Make it undeniable." This was my answer, not a shout, but a symphony. By evening, I'd taken another step. I walked to a co-working space in Pioneer Square, its brick walls and exposed beams alive with the hum of startups. There, I registered Harper Analytics LLC, my own company, a vessel for the Horizon Engine's future. The office was small, a single suite with a desk and a view of the Seattle skyline, but it was mine. I hung a vision board on the wall, a collage of ideas, predictive models for climate resilience, tools for small businesses, systems to empower, not exploit. This wasn't just about reclaiming my work. It was about building a legacy that reflected the dreams I'd shared with the STEM kids I mentored, kids who believed technology could change the world. I partnered with the University of Washington that week, arranging a beta test for the new engine. Their data science department was eager, their students buzzing with the same curiosity I'd felt years ago. I met with their lead professor, Dr. Maya Chen, in a campus cafe, her eyes lighting up as I described the engine's potential. "This could redefine analytics," she said, her voice warm. "And you're doing it on your terms." The Seattle skyline glowed softly through the glass door of my new office in Pioneer Square, a humble suite that felt like a fortress. It was late afternoon, the rain having cleared to leave a crisp, hopeful air. I sat at my desk, the Horizon Engine's enhanced code running on my laptop, its predictions sharper than ever. I'd made my mover-evoking Cascade Insights rights to my creation, founding Harper Analytics LLC, partnering with the University of Washington for beta tests. I listened, my heart full, and shared my own story, not just the pay cut, but the spark my mother had ignited in our Tacoma backyard. "You're a fire, Emma," she'd said, her hands warm on my cheeks. "Burn bright." That retreat wasn't just bonding, it was a pact, a promise to build something better. Back in the office, I started a podcast, anonymously at first, called Code of Truth. It was a space to talk about tech ethics, about the battles behind the systems that shaped our world. In the first episode, I spoke of a hypothetical coder whose work was stolen, whose voice was silenced. I didn't name Cascade, but I didn't need to. The episode went live, and by morning, my inbox had messages from listeners, coders, founders, dreamers who'd felt the same erasure. "Your story is mine," one wrote. "Keep fighting." The podcast wasn't just a platform. It was a reminder that my fight was bigger than me, that Harper Analytics could be a beacon for those who'd been dimmed. Claire Dawson's email still lingered, her question about the engine's independence, a quiet signal. I thought of her nod in the boardroom, her focus on me, not Nathan. Lucas's choice, the team's trust, the podcast's reach, they all echoed her belief. I opened my journal, my refuge since Elena's passing, and wrote about the retreat, the podcast, Lucas's grin. I wrote about the STEM kids I mentored, their dreams of a world where ideas won. I wrote about my mother, her words, a steady flame. The Horizon Engine was growing, not just in code, but in purpose. We were building tools to predict climate risks, to empower communities, to rewrite the rules of tech. I stood in the office that night, the Seattle skyline, a canvas of light. Lucas was at the desk, tweaking a new feature, his focus unbroken. The vision board glowed under the lamp, its images of impact and innovation, a roadmap. I thought of Nathan, his memo, his smugness. He thought he'd buried me, but he'd only pushed me to rise. Harper Analytics was small, but it was ours, built on loyalty, not greed. I closed my journal, my resolve like the cedars we'd walked among, deep-rooted, unyielding. The game was shifting, and I wasn't alone anymore. This wasn't just about a system, it was about proving that truth, when shared, could build a future no one could erase. The $900 million deal I'd secured was slipping from Nathan Pierce's grasp, but I wasn't alone anymore. I'm Emma Harper, the data scientist who'd been erased, then risen. And today, an ally chose my side, turning my solitary fight into something bigger, something shared. It began with a soft knock on the glass door. I looked up to see Lucas, the intern from Cascade, standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, his usual enthusiasm tempered by hesitation. He'd been the one to question my erasure, to slip me the memo exposing Nathan's plan to wipe my name from the Horizon Engine story. Now he stood on the threshold of my new world, his eyes scanning the minimal set-upon desk, one chair, a vision board pinned with dreams of climate resilience and equitable tech. I opened the door, my voice warm but curious. "Lucas, what's up?" He stepped inside, his sneakers scuffing the hardwood, and looked around like he was seeing the future. "So, this is real?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, a small smile breaking through. "It's very real, and it's just the beginning." He shifted, glancing at the floor, then met my eyes. "I've been thinking about what happened at Cascade, how they treated you. It's not right. I want to help build this," he said, gesturing to the laptop, the board, the office. "If you need someone who cares about the truth, not politics, I'm in." His words hit me like a wave, not crashing, but steady, lifting. Lucas, the kid who'd barely navigated Cascade's coffee runs, was choosing to stand with me, to bet on a company that was just a name and a dream. I didn't smile, not yet. I pulled out a second chair, my voice calm but firm. "I hope you know how to work weekends." He grinned, a spark of relief in his eyes. And just like that, Harper Analytics wasn't mine alone anymore. It was ours. I named Lucas Chief Technology Officer that evening, not because of titles, but because he'd earned it with loyalty and grit. We sat at the desk, sketching out plans for the Horizon Engine's next phase features for climate risk prediction, tools to stabilize small businesses during economic shifts. I shared my vision, not just for profit, but for impact, for a world where data served people, not power. Lucas listened, his notes scribbled with a coder's precision, his questions sharp and fearless. I saw in him the same fire I'd felt years ago, the fire my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, had nurtured at Stanford. "Your work is your legacy," she'd told me, her office a haven of wisdom. Now, I was passing that legacy to Lucas, building a team rooted in truth. The next weekend, I took Lucas and 2 other former Cascade developers who joined us to Olympic National Park for a team-building retreat. The forest was alive with towering cedars and the rush of the Hoh River, its air clean and grounding. We hiked a trail, our boots crunching on pine needles, and talked not just about code, but about why we were here. One developer, Sarah, shared how Cascade's politics had stifled her ideas. Another, Raj, spoke of wanting to build tech that mattered. The Seattle morning was sharp and clear, the kind that made every outline of the city's skyline feel like a promiser, a challenge. I stepped into Cascade Insight's glass tower, my guest badge clipped to my blazer, a stark reminder that I was no longer part of their world. The Horizon Engine, my creation, had secured a $900 million deal with Apex Ventures, but Cascade had tried to erase me, cutting my pay by 40%, locking my access, moving my desk to a corner. She's involved now. Apex doesn't invest $900 million without verifying who owns the code we're buying. I stood, my movements slow, deliberate. My pendant caught the light, a quiet reminder of my mother's fire. I placed the sealed envelope on the table and slid it toward Claire, my eyes meeting Nathan's. He looked uncertain, not angry, just unsteady, like a man sensing the ground shift. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Claire opened the envelope, her fingers precise, and read the header silently. Her gaze lifted to me, a nod so subtle it was almost invisible. "You're the only one in this room who's told us the truth," she said, her voice low but resonant. Nathan's mouth opened, but no sound came. The silence was deafening, a crack in his carefully built facade. Then he spoke, his voice loud, sharp, dripping with condescension. "We don't need you, Emma. The system runs fine without you." The words were meant to wound, to strip me bare in front of Apex. I didn't flinch. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a tablet, my fingers steady as I launched a visualization I'd prepared, a side-by-side comparison of Cascade's engine and my rebuilt version at Harper Analytics. The screen glowed, showing my system's superior speed, security, and new climate risk features. "This is the Horizon Engine's future," I said, my voice calm, grounded. "Not cascades. I'm invoking clause 7.2.1. You lost all rights 4 days ago." Claire scanned the visualization, her colleague leaning in, their whispers a hum of realization. She turned to Nathan, her tone icy. "Is this true?" Nathan stammered, his face reddening. "She can't do that. The engine's embedded in our infrastructure?" Claire raised a brow. "But is it licensed?" He froze, no answer. She turned to me, her voice steady. "Is your architecture still functional, under your control?" I nodded. "And improved. Faster, more secure, more impactful." She didn't hesitate. "Then we'll proceed with our investment as discussed, with Harper Analytics." Gasps echoed. Nathan's jaw dropped, his eyes darting to his team, his lawyers. "Anyone who could fix this." No one moved. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice cracking. Claire stood, her presence commanding. "No, Nathan. We're correcting one." Lucas leaned toward me, his whisper barely audible. "They have no idea how far behind they are." I nodded, my heart steady. Nathan had watched $900 million slip away, and I hadn't raised my voice. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, her Stanford wisdom. "Make your work undeniable." I thought of the STEM kids I mentored, their dreams of a better world. I thought of my mother, her star pendant warm against my skin. This moment wasn't just victory, it was proof that truth could shift power in an instant. I stood tall, the boardroom's silence my canvas. Seattle's skyline beyond the glass, a testament to dreamers. The Horizon Engine was mine, and so was this fight. This wasn't just about code, it was about proving that one voice, one truth could change everything. I'd fought back, quietly, fiercely, revoking their rights to the engine, founding Harper Analytics, and rebuilding my system with a small, loyal team. Today, I was here for a final investor meeting, not as an employee, but as the architect of truth. I'm Emma Harper, and this was the moment the stakes would change. The boardroom on the 23rd floor was familiar, its mahogany table and Puget Sound, views unchanged, but the air felt different charged, like the calm before a storm. Nathan Pierce stood at the head, flanked by his executives, their gray-blue suits a uniform of hollow confidence. He clicked through a presentation, his voice smooth, selling a vision he hadn't built. The Apex Ventures team sat across, Claire Dawson's sharp eyes scanning every slide, her colleagues taking notes. Lucas, now my CTO at Harper Analytics, sat beside me, his shoulders tense, our plan rehearsed late into the night. We'd run every scenario, every variable, like coders debugging a system. This wasn't a meeting, it was a chess match, and I held the winning move. I wore a pendant from my mother, a small silver star she'd given me in our Tacoma backyard, her words echoing, "You're a fire, Emma, burn bright." It rested against my chest, grounding me as Nathan droned on about full integration by Q4 and benchmark, surpassing metrics. Claire's pen stopped tapping, her gaze flickering to me, a silent question. I clutched a folded document in my lap, notarized and sealed, its single sentence ablaid. The Horizon Engine is no longer licensed for use by Cascade Insights. Asterisk. We'd planned this moment, Lucas and I, but my heart still raced. Not with fear, but with the clarity of purpose. Nathan reached his final slide, his grin wide. "That's our roadmap, folks. The Horizon Engine is ready to lead." Claire leaned back, her expression unreadable. A long pause stretched, the room holding its breath. Then she spoke, her voice measured, cutting. "Thank you, Nathan. Before we proceed, we need one last confirmation." Nathan's smile didn't falter. "Of course, Claire. Legal compliance, due diligence, it's all in order." She shook her head once, deliberate. "Intellectual property clearance. We need written confirmation from the engine's original architect that Cascade is authorized to deploy it commercially." The room froze. Nathan blinked, his confidence cracking for a split second before he recovered. "The tech is ours, fully integrated. No external licensing required. Claire's eyes narrowed. That's not what I asked. We need direct acknowledgement from Emma Harper. All eyes turned to me, a spotlight I'd once craved, now heavy with consequence. Nathan laughed, tight and hollow. Emma's here as a courtesy, she's not part of the signature process. Claire's voice sharpened, unyielding. The Seattle sunrise painted Puget Sound in hues of amber and rose, a quiet beauty that felt like a new beginning. I stood in the expanded office of Harper Analytics in Pioneer Square, its high ceilings and glass walls a far cry from the cramped suite I'd started with weeks ago. The Horizon engine, my predictive analytics system, had risen from the ashes of Cascade Insight's betrayal, 40% pay cut, a corner desk, Nathan Pierce's smug erasure, another, with a global climate group, modeled coastal flooding risks, saving communities time and resources. These weren't just products. They were lifelines, proof that data could serve humanity, not just profit. I thought of the kids at my STEM program, their questions about tech's purpose. This was my answer. I launched a scholarship fund that month, the Harper Future Innovators Program, for underrepresented STEM students. The first recipient, a high school senior from Tacoma, wrote me a letter, her words raw and hopeful. You showed me I can dream big and win. I framed it, hanging it beside my vision board, a reminder of why I'd started. The scholarship wasn't charity. It was investment in a future where no one's spark was dimmed. I thought of the Women in Tech meetup, their stories of resilience, and my podcast, Code of Truth, where listeners shared their own battles. Harper Analytics wasn't just my company. It was a movement, a space where truth and talent could thrive. Claire Dawson emailed that week, her tone warm, professional. You've built something extraordinary, Emma. Apex is proud to back you. I replied, thanking her, but the real gratitude was unspoken. Her nod, her question about the engine's independence, had lit a path when I'd felt lost. Lucas, Sarah, Raj, they'd walked it with me, their loyalty a foundation stronger than Cascade's greed. I opened my journal, my refuge since Elena's passing, and wrote about the press, the TEDx talk, the scholarship. I wrote about my mother, her star pendant, a steady light. I wrote about the STEM kids, their dreams now part of mine. Harper Analytics was small, but its impact was vast, a ripple becoming a wave. I stood in the office that evening, the Seattle skyline glittering beyond the glass. Lucas was at a whiteboard sketching a new feature. Sarah and Raj debated code over coffee. The air was alive with purpose, not politics. I thought of Nathan, his resignation a distant echo, his empire reduced to ash. I didn't hate him. I didn't need to. My legacy was here, in this room, in the systems we built, the lives we touched. I closed my journal, my resolve like the cedars of Olympic National Park, where we'd forged our pact. The Horizon engine was mine, but its future was ours. This wasn't just about a deal. It was about proving that from ashes, a legacy could rise undeniable, unbreakable, and true. I'd fought back, revoking their rights, founding my own company, and securing a $900 million investment from Apex Ventures. Now, as I looked at my team, Lucas, Sarah, Raj, and 9 others who'd left Cascade to join me, I felt not just victory, but purpose. I'm Emma Harper, and this was the legacy I was building, not from revenge, but from truth. The press release went live at 8:02 a.m. Its headline bold across every major outlet. Apex Ventures invests $900 million in Harper Analytics, redefining predictive intelligence. My name stood front and center. Not a footnote, not a whisper, but a declaration. TechSlate called it a game changer. The Wall Street Journal hailed it as a new era for analytics. Within an hour, my inbox overflowed with messages from former Cascade colleagues. Shocked and apologetic, some asking if we were hiring. We were. Our office, though modest, buzzed with energy, its walls lined with whiteboards and dreams. Lucas, my CTO, sat across from me, his business card a badge of loyalty earned through courage. He grinned, scrolling through our roadmap. "This feels right," he said, "like we're building something that matters." I nodded, my heart full. We were. Cascade Insights, meanwhile, crumbled. An intellectual property fraud audit hit them hard, shutting down 50% of their operations. Nathan Pierce resigned voluntarily, pending investigation, his public statement blaming internal misalignment. Privately, they knew the truth. They'd bet against the wrong person. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their collapse was a shadow, fleeting and irrelevant, while Harper Analytics was a flame, growing brighter. We weren't just a company. We were a mission, rooted in the belief that technology should empower, not erase. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, her Stanford wisdom echoing. Make your work undeniable. I had, and now it was changing the world. That afternoon, I stood on a TEDx Seattle stage, the spotlight warm, the audience a sea of expectant faces. I'd been invited to speak on owning your truth, a topic that felt like my life's story. I wore my mother's silver star pendant, its weight a reminder of her Tacoma lessons. You're a fire, Emma. Burn bright. I shared my journey, not the full details, but enough. A coder who built a system, lost her voice, and reclaimed it. I spoke of the STEM kids I mentored, their fearless dreams, and how they inspired me to fight. The crowd leaned forward, their silence a hum of connection. When I finished, the applause was thunderous, not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever felt invisible. A young woman in the front row, a coder, caught my eye, her nod a mirror of Claire Dawson's in the boardroom. I smiled. This was why I'd fought. Harper Analytics grew fast, our team of 12 a family of believers. Sarah, our lead designer, brought empathy to our interfaces. Raj, our data engineer, pushed for accessibility in every model. We expanded the Horizon Engine's scope, adding tools for humanitarian crisis prediction and environmental risk mitigation. One project, a collaboration with a Seattle nonprofit, used our system to forecast food insecurity, directing aid before hunger struck. The Seattle evening was soft, the kind where the city's lights danced on Puget Sound like a canvas of dreams. I stood in a community center in Capitol Hill, its walls lined with posters of local artists, its air filled with the hum of voice coders, students, dreamers, all gathered for an event I'd organized. Harper Analytics was no longer just a name on a lease in Pioneer Square. I thought of the Women in Tech meetup, their stories of resilience, and the Olympic National Park retreat, where my team had forged a pact. Harper Analytics was global now, with plans for offices in London and Tokyo, our roadmap stretching years ahead, predicting crises, empowering communities, rewriting tech's rules. I opened my journal later, my refuge since Elena's passing, and wrote about the event, the crowd stories, their courage. I wrote about my mother, her star pendant a steady light, and the STEM kids, their dreams now my mission. I wrote about Lucas, whose loyalty had turned a spark into a flame, and Claire, whose belief had shifted the game. But most of all, I wrote for the people in that room, for anyone who'd felt invisible. Your voice matters, I wrote. Stand your ground, not with anger, but with work so true it speaks for you. The event ended with a manifesto, one I'd drafted for Harper Analytics and shared online. We build for truth, for impact, for a world where no one's spark is dimmed, it began. It went viral, shared by coders, teachers, dreamers across the country, their comments a chorus of hope. This is why I keep going, one wrote. I framed the manifesto, hanging it beside the scholarship letter in our office, a reminder of why we fought. Harper Analytics wasn't just about analytics. It was about proving that one person, one idea, could change everything. I stood in the community center as the crowd dispersed, their voices lingering like an echo of possibility. A young coder approached, her eyes bright. I'm starting my own project, she said. You showed me I can? I smiled, my heart full. This was the legacy, not just the Horizon Engine, but the fires we'd lit in others. I thought of Elena, her belief in me, and my mother, her star now mine. I thought of the STEM kids, their questions my guide. Harper Analytics was growing, but its heart was here, in moments like this, where truth became action. I walked home through Capitol Hill, the Seattle night alive with promise. Luna greeted me. her purr a quiet anchor. I opened my journal one last time, writing a final line. This is just the beginning. The Horizon engine was mine, but its future was ours. A world where dreamers stood tall. To anyone feeling erased, I say this. Don't destroy, build. Don't shout, shine. Your ground is yours to hold, and the world will circle back to those who stand firm. This wasn't just about a deal. It was about proving that one spark, one truth, could light a legacy that never fades. It was a movement, born from the ashes of Cascade Insight's betrayal, fueled by a $900 million investment from Apex Ventures, and driven by a team that believed in truth. I'm Emma Harper, the data scientist who'd built the Horizon engine, lost my voice, and reclaimed it. Tonight, as I looked out at the crowd, I wasn't just reflecting on my journey. I was calling others to stand their ground, to build something undeniable, just as I had. The room was packed, chairs filled with faces young and old, their stories written in their eyes hopeful, wounded, determined. I'd invited them to share their experiences, to talk about moments when their work was overlooked, their voices silenced. A young coder spoke of a startup that took her app and gave her no credit. A teacher shared how her curriculum was adopted without her name. Each story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of resilience, and I felt it wrap around me, warm and strong. I wore my mother's silver star pendant, its weight a reminder of her Tacoma wisdom. You're a fire, Emma, burn bright. I stepped to the microphone, my heart steady, and began. My name is Emma Harper, I said, my voice clear. And I built a system that changed an industry, only to have it stolen from me. The room leaned in, their silence a shared breath. I told them of Cascade Insights, of Nathan Pierce's smug erasure, of the 40% pay cut delivered at 2:47 a.m. I spoke of the corner desk, the locked drives, the memo that planned to wipe me out. But I didn't linger on the pain. I spoke of the fight finding the licensing agreement, founding Harper Analytics, rebuilding the Horizon engine with Lucas, Sarah, Raj, and a team of believers. I shared how we'd secured Apex's investment, how Claire Dawson's nod had lit a path, how our system now predicted humanitarian crises and climate risks, serving people, not just profit. The crowd listened, their nods a quiet chorus. I thought of my late mentor, Dr. Elena Ruiz, her Stanford office, a haven of wisdom. Your work is your legacy, she'd said, and I'd made it so. Harper Analytics wasn't just a company. It was a promise to the STEM kids I mentored, to the scholarship recipients of the Harper Future Innovators Program, to the listeners of my podcast, Code of Truth. I spoke of the TEDx Seattle stage, where I'd urged others to own their truth, and of the nonprofit projects saving communities from hunger and floods. You don't need to shout to be heard, I told the crowd. Build something so undeniable they can't ignore you. An email had come that morning, no subject line, from Nathan Pierce. If I'd seen it earlier, maybe this would have ended differently, he wrote. Too late now, isn't it? I read it once, then closed the tab without replying. He was right. It was too late for him, for Cascade, now a husk under audit, its operations gutted, its name a cautionary tale. I didn't need his apology. My answer was here, in this room, in the work we'd built, in the legacy rising from their ashes. The Seattle skyline shimmered under a twilight glow, its lights reflecting on Puget Sound like stars scattered across a canvas of dreams. Emma Harper stood in her Capitol Hill apartment, her journal open, Luna purring softly beside her. The journey that had begun 3 years ago in a cramped coding session had unfolded into a saga of triumph, betrayal, and redemption. Harper Analytics soared, its team of 12 building tools for humanitarian crises and environmental risks. Emma spoke at TEDx Seattle, launched a scholarship for underrepresented STEM students, and hosted a community event, urging others to stand their ground. Her manifesto, shared online, became a beacon. Build for truth, for impact, for a world where no one's spark is dimmed. Emma's journey is a testament to resilience, a reminder that betrayal doesn't define you, your response does. She didn't seek revenge. She built a legacy, proving that truth, when held firmly, can topple giants. Her story offers 3 profound lessons for anyone navigating today's world. First, know your worth and protect it. Emma's licensing agreement, drafted before Cascade, was her lifeline. In life, This means documenting your contributions, emails, contracts, timestamps, and understanding your rights. Whether you're a coder, a teacher, or a creative, safeguard your work. It's not paranoia, it's power. Keep a journal, like Emma, to track your achievements and remind yourself of your spark when others try to dim it. Second, find your allies and build with them. Lucas's courage, Claire's belief, the Women in Tech meetup, the STEM kids, they gave Emma strength. In your life, seek those who see you, who share your values. They might be colleagues, mentors, or strangers at a community event. Build networks, not for gain but for truth. Attend meetups, join forums, or start a group, like Emma's event, to share stories and solutions. Allies turn solitary fights into collective victories, and their loyalty, like Lucas's, can change everything. Third, let your work speak louder than your pain. Emma didn't destroy Cascade. She built Harper Analytics, a company that served communities, not egos. When you're overlooked, don't lash out, create. Start a project, share your ideas, volunteer your skills. If you're a student, launch a club. If you're a professional, mentor someone or write a blog, like Emma's podcast. Your work, when undeniable, becomes your voice. It's not about fame, but impact, like Emma's scholarship or nonprofit projects. Build something that outlasts the noise, something that lights the way for others. For today's audience, whether you're 18, dreaming of a career, or 55, navigating a workplace, Emma's story is a call to action. You don't need a $900 million deal to stand your ground. Start small. Document a project, connect with a colleague, share a story, join a community, like Emma's event, or create one online. Mentor someone, as Emma did with her STEM kids, or support a cause, like her climate work. The world is loud, but your truth is louder. Stand firm, not with anger, but with work, so true it reshapes the game. I closed my journal, the Seattle night alive, with possibility. Luna purred, and I thought of Elena, my mother, the STEM kids, Lucas, Claire. Harper Analytics was global now, but its heart was here, in the spark we'd ignited. To anyone feeling erased, I say this: your ground is yours. Build on it, shine from it, and let your legacy rise. This wasn't just about a system. It was about proving that one truth, one fire, could light a world that never fades. Emma, a data scientist with a vision, had built the Horizon Engine, a predictive analytics system that could forecast market trends across 12 industries in 8 seconds. It was her creation, her fire, forged through late nights and relentless passion. Yet, the path to its legacy was anything but smooth, a tale of brilliance, dimmed, then reignited, that offers lessons for anyone who's ever felt their spark overlooked. Emma's story started with a breakthrough, a system that promised to reshape industries. She pitched it to Apex Ventures, New York City's titan of venture capital, in a Seattle boardroom at Cascade Insights. Her virtual reality demo stunned the room, earning a nod from Claire Dawson, Apex's managing partner, who insisted, "Keep her on the project." Emma's heart soared, validated by the recognition, her late mentor Dr. Elena Ruiz's words echoing, "Make your work undeniable." But the celebration that followed erased her. Banners hailed a $900 million deal, but her name was absent. Nathan Pierce, claiming the glory with a smug speech about leadership from the top. Emma stood invisible, her pride curdling into isolation, a notebook with Cascade's logo her only reward. The betrayal deepened with a 2:47 a.m. email, slashing her pay by 40%, and a demotion to a corner desk, her access to the engine locked. Nathan's words cut deeper. Stay in your lane. Yet, in that darkness, Emma found light. A licensing agreement drafted years ago gave her power to revoke Cascade's rights. A leaked memo from Lucas, a young intern, exposed Nathan's plan to erase her entirely. Claire's email, asking if the engine could stand alone, hinted at Apex's faith in her, not Cascade. Emma's mother's voice, from a Tacoma backyard, urged her to burn bright. And Elena's wisdom fueled her resolve. She wasn't just a coder, she was an architect, and she would reclaim her work. Emma's response was quiet but seismic. She notarized a termination notice, ending Cascade's rights to the Horizon Engine, and founded Harper Analytics LLC in a Pioneer Square office. She rebuilt the system faster and smarter, partnering with the University of Washington for beta tests and crafting a vision board of impact, climate resilience, community empowerment. Lucas joined her, becoming CTO, his loyalty a spark that grew into a team with Sarah, Raj, and others who left Cascade's politics behind. A retreat in Olympic National Park forged their pact, and Emma's podcast, Code of Truth, shared stories of erasure, resonating with thousands. The stage was set for a reckoning. In a final boardroom showdown, Emma presented her notarized notice, her visualization proving Harper Analytics' superiority. Claire demanded proof of ownership, exposing Cascade's fraud. Nathan's desperate claim, "We don't need you," Emma crumbled as Apex shifted its $900 million to Harper Analytics. The press hailed Emma's triumph. Cascade collapsed under audit, and Nathan resigned, his empire ash.